for the blast had little effect on the Dragon King. Now Onaga has what he needs to shape the realms as he sees fit. I was the fool who brought him this power. Only I can destroy this threat, born of deception.
When the 3D era of Mortal Kombat began with Deadly Alliance, it was viewed with mixed reception. Many players thought the fighting aspect of the game was outstanding, the fluidity and smoothness of the combat made it really fun. Having 3 different fighting styles added much needed depth to the gameplay. I had always felt Tekken beat Mortal Kombat tenfold when it came to the straight fighting. This at least helped close the gap. The other side of the spectrum thought the removal of certain aspects such as stage fatalities, bringing all of the characters' fatalities down to only 1, some of the characters only having 2 special moves, and a small roster. Needless to say, there was a lot of criticism deserved to be thrown towards Deadly Alliance. But the inarguable part about Deadly Alliance is that it was good enough to put the franchise back on the map. Mortal Kombat was dormant for 5 years at that point, so it needed to be good enough to make us want to have interest again, mainly because they released stinker after stinker, worthless pieces of junk games like Mortal Kombat Special Forces, Mythologies, and Mortal Kombat 4. This now brings us to Deception. This game was released in 2004, 2 years after Deadly Alliance. No one was expecting the game we were going to get. Maybe more characters, a new mode to play, hopefully every character has 2 fatalities this time around, let's see. Loading into it, we see we have 4 modes of play this time. Your traditional arcade mode, chess combat, puzzle combat, and finally we have Conquest mode. Conquest mode is the best place to start since we did the same with Deadly Alliance. So what we have here is something special. This is not a tutorial, this is not a unique fighting tower, it is a full-fledged RPG within a Mortal Kombat game. Most people of the time soiled their pants knowing they had an entire world to explore, a story to follow, stuff to find, and fights to do. You start the game as a young Shujinko role-playing with his friends outside. Pretending they are a part of a Mortal Kombat tournament, Shujinko is the loser kid pretending he is Kung Lao as this mechanism comes towards him. He ends up being late for training with Baraicho, essentially the tutorial part of the game where you learn how to do punches, kicks, dash, block, and whatever else you would typically learn in a fighting game. After you finish that nonsense, the path ahead is straightforward. You can now interact with NPCs, hear what they have to say to you, find currency, open chests, go in houses, and experience the beginning of the open world. How did you feel if you played this at the time? Did you soil yourself? I know if it was me playing back then, I would have shat myself without question. The ability to control yourself, run around, and do things is very unexpected for a fighting game, especially at the time. After finishing the tutorial and learning all of your fighting abilities with Baraicho, he does not allow you to leave the city as you want since you are not skilled enough to protect yourself outside of the city walls. Shujinko is upset, but he abides by the order and turns around. You are now confronted by a character named Damashi telling you that the Elder Gods are looking for a champion to find items throughout multiple realms to save them from impending doom and ensure they do not fall into the wrong hands. He gives you the ability to absorb the fighting power of anyone Shujinko goes against in battle, essentially making you the most powerful character in the universe of Mortal Kombat, but I will digress on that. Damashi tells you to go back and show Baraicho who is boss, which you do with your newfound abilities. Now with you being outside the city walls, you can traverse the world as you please, finding all the collectibles you can, even finding side quests with the NPCs inside the world. Your main quest is always shown on the compass with a green arrow or light showing you where to go, so you always stay aware throughout your story. Speaking of the story, Baraicho wanted us to visit his house to further our training, a character tutorial similar to Conquest mode from the previous game. We can learn some of his basic attacks, combos, branching combos, and special moves, giving us an idea of how to play as them in upcoming fights. After our extra training with him, we are introduced to my favorite part of the game. Over time, as you play throughout Conquest mode, Shujinko ages. In the game, our training with Baraicho lasted many years, and now we are an adult instead of a kid. This happens at specific points of the game, continuously growing up until Shujinko is the older man we know him as. That mechanic is never utilized in games. It seriously makes you feel more attached to the character because it seems like you are growing up with him and living throughout his entire lifetime. If you just stayed the same age the whole game, it wouldn't have that same attachment effect. After our training with Baraicho, we got informed he lost a warrior's amulet while drinking with a fisherman, and we have to go find and talk to the bandits that took the medallion away from him. him. By talking, I mean punching him in the face. Damashi interjects on our trip back to Boraicho, telling you to keep the medallion for yourself, and Shujinko listens without a second thought and steals the item from the person who trained you for years according to the game. Since you are a bastard, you take that medallion to the Lin Kuei's little house they have out here in Earthrealm. Flexing the medallion to them, you are now allowed to train with Sub-Zero himself. Of course, that entails learning his moveset, special moves, combos, and all, just like we did with Boraicho, essentially another character tutorial. There is an item the Lin Kuei have found to be very helpful to their ranks. You are given a password Ice Dragon to allow Sub-Zero's brain-damaged brother to enable you to walk into a cave and grab that said item, which we learned that is our first Kamidogu. I called him brain damaged because could he not have just walked in there and got it himself? We know Shujinko is an asshole and will steal it anyways, which is what we do, of course. Damashi tells us we need to go in the portal, entering a place called the Nexus, and place our Kamidogu down on the altar, then enter the Netherrealm to find the next. I wanted to set the ground for the story by introducing it. I personally do not feel the story is worth going all the way into, but rather the game's detail making Conquest Mode so much fun. That's not me saying the story is terrible in any means. I really think the story is great, and it's a really fun experience. My issue with it is playing the game straight up for the story. If you do not care much about the universe of Mortal Kombat, storytelling and gaming, or what have you, Conquest Mode will be very dull for you. I say that because doing the main game's missions, they all play out the same exact way. For example, as we mentioned earlier, the extensive training with Boraicho, doing a small task, then being trained by the Lin Kuei. Giving you that outline right there is the entire game in a nutshell. Go somewhere, learn how to fight as a character, do something, learn another character, which is just the Conquest Mode from the previous game, and why I say playing through it as someone who does not care much about exploration and detail in the game will not enjoy this. There are some story fights, but not enough to warrant calling it real story within gameplay. Honestly, watching cutscenes is your best bet if you care enough about the story, but if you are like me and enjoy finding collectibles, talking to NPCs, and doing side quests, this will be a lot of fun for you. Before discussing the detailed stuff throughout Conquest Mode and what I find the most enjoyable, I must talk about the ending. This is your fair warning if you want to avoid having the ending spoiled for yourself, but I'm sure most people have finished it now. It has been 19 years at this point, so it's kind of safe to assume that. Okay, so now the ending. When you collect all of the Kamidogu and return them to the Nexus, Scorpion shows up for some reason. I don't understand why he even does, but when you finish that fight with him, you get a cutscene and you find out Onaga was the one behind this after all. Damashi is a spiritual version of his consciousness, and you were a puppet to put his plans into action. This is very sad if you think about it, since Shujinko got hoodwinked. His entire life was wasted finding these things, making his existence worthless, essentially. But you run away from Onaga since Shujinko says there's no way I can take him in a fight, and you run back to Earthrealm, and that's the end of the game. I thought the game was glitched. Like, what happened? Did I miss something? Am I supposed to play the game on a harder difficulty? I thought medium would be good enough, but no, that is really the ending of Conquest Mode, leaving you on a hanger, confusing the hell out of me, like, why? But I understand what they are trying to do here. It was supposed to segue you into arcade mode and finish it with Shujinko to get the game's true ending. Why could they have not put it here? I just don't understand. The whole situation makes no sense to me, but I will play you the arcade ending of Shujinko so you can get the game's closure and what is supposedly the true ending of the game, if you want to call it that.
So that I would be able to defend myself during the quest to find the Kamidogu, Onaga had given me the power to absorb the fighting ability of any warrior I encountered, but his gift would prove to be his undoing. The warriors in Outworld were in disarray. Heroes were not focused on the true threat of Onaga, and villains were unaware that they were bringing about their own destruction by serving him. I united them, and in one moment, absorbed their combined fighting power. I shattered each of the Kamidogu, the source of his invulnerability. This weakened Onaga, and I attacked him without mercy. His mortal form was no match for a combatant infused with the powers of so many warriors. The Dragon King was finally defeated. The realms will remain as they have since the beginning.
It is very clever to use his own power against him, but I saw that coming before it even did since he can absorb anybody's power. The story of Conquest is not bad at all, but it's not the strong suit of it for me. The gameplay of this is where the fun truly is. 6 Kamidogu means 6 different worlds to go into, and all of their environments are very well detailed. My favorite area is with many zombies wandering about in the Netherrealm. Taking in the scenery, talking to NPCs, it's much more enjoyable than I thought. You get told weird and exciting stuff from them, honestly making me laugh at times. Side quests are a great addition to the Mortal Kombat conquest. Some of them can involve finding a potion for somebody, helping a person out with money, or scaring somebody's grandpa as a prank, and when you scare him, he ends up dying. You know, the typical stuff. My only issue with it is the fact you get no hints, no guides telling you where to go, and no quest log. So if you forget about that quest, you're fucked because you won't remember the things you need to do. Occasionally, you have missions where someone wants an item, you grab the thing and come back, and then you're like, where the hell are they? They're just gone, running around aimlessly trying to find the person, but it turns out some NPCs only come out at certain times of the day or even a specific day of the week, making it overly challenging to finish a lot of these side quests without a guide. It's a miracle some people even figured out how to do these things at all. I'm really happy they're here. It is enjoyable to do them, just the quest log would have been a nice feature to keep track of them so you know what you're doing and when. If I go eat, then poop, come back, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing and I don't remember where I had to go, and it can become really frustrating. Speaking of frustrating, the fight challenges. Okay, so this is the only negative thing I have to say about this conquest mode, since everything is very excellent, of course. The side quest thing is a little bit questionable, but I can let it slide since it's really fun to go around the environment and talk to the different characters. But these right here, if you've played this game before, Shang Tsung Netherrealm Fight Challenge. That is all I need to say, and you know exactly what I'm talking about instantly. Some of these are fucked. Absolutely disgusting how hard these are, to be unfeasible for some people to even finish them. It makes me sick how vile this is. Win against AI input reading Shang Tsung while you're rapidly losing health while he is rapidly gaining health. Like, who came up with that mess? You can sit here wasting your time finishing it and accomplishing that grueling challenge for a few hundred coins. Like, are you kidding me? I can get that from a very easy arcade mode fight. Why would I even bother to beat Sub-Zero while you do 75% less damage, beat Scorpion while he does 600% more damage, when I can get a very easy arcade mode win that gives me more rewards for doing it? Some of these are genuinely fun challenges, but there is a difference between a challenge and a complete waste of my time. If I got a costume or even a character unlock, it would be worth it since the reward is something I want to go for. But 500 coins, get the fuck out of here with that nonsense, seriously. With the unlockable stuff, I feel like it was a missed opportunity to implement it better within the gameplay. You can find many characters, puzzle fighter characters, alternate costumes in chests, coins, and plenty of other things. If these were fight challenge rewards, it would have been much better, making you want to do them, especially the harder ones. But this mode is a mouthful of an experience that is so much fun to play. We can nitpick and complain about this mode all we want, but at the end of the day, this mode does not even need to be here. This could have been a simple tutorial mode with nothing else behind it, but instead we got a full-fledged RPG within a Mortal Kombat game, and this was the first time something like this has ever been done in a fighting game before, to my knowledge. My favorite part of going through Conquest mode is realizing this goes on all throughout the other Mortal Kombat games. You get references such as Shang Tsung starting a Mortal Kombat tournament, Shao Kahn merging the realms and fighting against Earth, and smaller ones people may not notice, like Scorpion trying to find Quan Chi and kill him since he found out Sub-Zero was not the murderer of his clan. Quan Chi himself is the one who did it, and that is part of Mortal Kombat mythologies in Mortal Kombat 4. Finally, Raiden mentions how Quan Chi and Shang Tsung have started an alliance with each other, and you are living through the life of Shujinko, talking about moments in games you may have been playing over the past 10 years of your own life. It seriously was an amazing detail that people may have overlooked, making you feel old as shit, then looking back at this game that was released almost 20 years ago, making you feel even older. I recommend anyone who watches this to replay Conquest mode or play it if you never have. This is a really fun experience, not to mention the rest of the game that we still have to go through. We are supposed to transition into arcade mode, so that is where we will go next. Before we get into my arcade playthrough, I wanted to discuss something that pisses me off. It is the portable version of this game. If you need clarification on my saying of this, what is wrong with the handheld port of Deception? Well, when the handheld version is the most definitive version of the game, it pisses me off. Why does the PSP get 6 more characters? Goro, Shao Kahn, Frost, Blaze, Jax, and Katana are increasing the roster to 30 characters. The GameCube version just had Goro and Shao Kahn, which also does not make sense of why they're not on both platforms. I hate that nonsense, and it puts a sour taste into my mouth, playing the inferior version of the game. But with all of that trash out of the way, it's time to get into the actual arcade playthrough. I wanted to use Jade since I did not use her at all throughout the Conquest mode. She's always been one of my favorite characters since Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. If you watched my last video about Deadly Alliance, we talked about the removal of stage fatalities. Thankfully, it was decided they were necessary after all, but returning in a non-traditional way. You can punch your opponents off of cliffs, into walls, or wherever you see a red blinking outline to instantly kill them, giving you a new creative way to get your gory fix. I prefer this method over the fatalities fatality input system from the previous games, you can do it whenever you please or just get lucky in a pinch. The AI often knows what you're trying to do, so you must be clever with your movement to pull them off. Plus, stage transitions have returned as well, changing the scenery of fighting your opponent. You can do this on many levels, which I really enjoy. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 had a lot of cool ones, but these ones beat the simple uppercut through the roof like we are used to. The combat itself is much like Deadly Alliance, which is okay. Having 3 fighting styles per character allows for intricate combat, making the learning curve higher. The branching combos seem to have gotten crazier, allowing for more creativity during fights. Your weapon fighting style still makes you take extra damage, so you need to be careful pulling it out. The advantage of this is that it has a longer attack range, but I never felt like the weapon was the bee's knees and something disgustingly overpowered, just something to use as a risk reward. Sadly though, the reward doesn't really warrant you taking extra damage to me. Sticking with the hand-to-hand fighting styles and doing combos from those is the best move for me, since you take typical damage. Besides, you can branch into your weapon fighting style anyways. Staying in it is not too intelligent, especially when the AI becomes more difficult. A shining point to me in this game is the stage design. Of course, the ability to hit people into death traps and do transitions helps a lot with adding to the environment of a game, but aside from that, the art is phenomenal here. Typically, there are stages I hate and like in fighters, but in this game, I have no problem with a single stage. My favorite one in the whole game is the Yin Yang Island. The creativity of it is seriously a nice touch. You start off with the sun in the background, palm trees, and if you hit your opponents into those trees, coconuts fall down. On a timer, the stage will turn into a darkened island where the trees turn into giant snakes. Now it's raining outside, and when you hit someone into the tree, a human head falls down. After I won this fight, Sub-Zero did something I forgot about, harakiris, which is basically offing yourself so your opponent cannot do a fatality to you. As far as I can remember, this was never brought back, probably due to a morality standpoint where you have a game allowing you to do that to yourself, but it's an interesting thing to have nonetheless. Speaking of death, we now have 2 fatalities in this game instead of just 1, like Deadly Alliance, making the ways to finish battles more engaging rather than having one single way to do it. I usually skip out on fatalities after seeing them once, but most people love doing their finishers, and for everyone who wants that, it's here for you. After getting through the arcade mode quickly, the AI wasn't giving me the shits for once. Shocking, I know. We get to Onaga, the game's final boss that should have been in conquest mode, but we fight him here instead. No sub-boss, which is a first for this franchise. Typically we had characters like Goro, Motaro, Kintaro, Moloch, and friends, but it's straight to the big man himself. Believe me, I'm not complaining about this. Look, he is an excellent character, honestly. I always loved Onaga as a kid. I appreciate the creativity put into his battle, giving you the ability to collect the Kamidogu during the boss battle, weakening him each time you pick one up, and increasing the damage that he receives from you. But it's a Mortal Kombat boss. They're always irritating and cheap to fight, devolving into you spamming the same 3 moves over and over again to win. I've said it once and I will repeat it. Mortal Kombat bosses are skillless, boring fights that are just a test of patience to see if you will swallow a bottle of cockroaches or continue playing. I never found these fun and I still don't. Onaga, you're cool, but also eat my asshole until it resembles a California raisin. Not a lot changed from Deadly Alliance to Deception with the combat, but that's not a complaint because it was the most vital part of that game. Our complaints with the previous entry were removing features and needing more content, not the combat system. Regardless of how I feel about Onaga and the bosses in these games, it's still an enjoyable experience to go through the arcade mode, getting the pinnacle of 3D Mortal Kombat fighting. You have your 2 fatalities, stage transitions, and the 3 fighting styles with every single character in the game. There's nothing to complain about regarding the arcade mode or conquest. However, we still have 2 more modes to go through because the developers packed so much content into this game. So first, we'll start with chess combat. Going into this, many people would not know what to expect. Chess in a Mortal Kombat game, how would that even work? When you start, you must make a team of 5 different classes, so to speak. A leader, champion, sorcerer, shifter, and a grunt. After you make your team, you are thrown into the world of chess combat. Seeing all these characters on a board like this is very funny, but this mode is really enjoyable. Your grunts act like a pawn, your shifter acts like a rook, your sorcerer acts as a bishop, and the champion is like a queen, and the leader is the king. Of course, each piece has different powers you can experience throughout your playthrough. Your shifter will become the character you initiate with, so if I try to take Dairu's square, I will have to play as Dairu during that fight. But if I get attacked, I stay as my character, which is Nightwolf. Your sorcerer is the most essential piece aside from the leader, obviously, because they allow you to use spells. Each sorcerer you have allows you access to 4 spells each. Heal, teleport, resurrect, protect, kill, imprison, exchange, and sacrifice. Of course, to keep the game balanced, we can't use kill on an enemy leader or resurrect certain pieces on our side, but having access access to these during the game can be your lifesaver. Each piece has varying health. Your sorcerer has the least health while your leader has the most. You may be wondering what those green squares are. Well, those are called power cells, and if you have a piece on those squares, your health pool is increased during the fight, making it very advantageous to go for them. Getting control of both of them gives your grunts 100% health during fights, which is very helpful considering their normal health is around 30 to 40%. Your main goal is to kill the leader, which can be done at any moment. There's no checkmate or something along those lines, so if you're new to this, I recommend using your best character as the leader just in case you get bum rushed on the harder difficulties. Playing this mode is a lot of fun, especially with a friend. If you are cracked out of your mind playing chess combat with another person, it can be really competitive and a very exciting environment with some nostalgia thrown into the mix. You do not fight on traditional battlegrounds. Specific ones were brought back from previous games to make them different from the standard arcade mode. We have the Pit, Deadpool, Living Forest, and the Portal, with the Pit and Deadpool having their iconic stage fatalities. Every single stage has its own original music from the classic games as well, which is fantastic. Sadly, you cannot pick the theme you get, it is completely random. This is something I wish would return to the franchise. It is my favorite for fun game mode ever introduced into Mortal Kombat. The nostalgia, the exciting gameplay mechanics, and the enjoyment factor are all present, making all three modes we have played kick ass. But we still have one last mode to go through, Puzzle Combat. In Puzzle Combat, we only have access to certain characters, 12 being available here, each having a special ability. There is a tower we have to go through with 6 quote-unquote fights, but they're not actually fights. We are playing a mode where you must match a bunch of colored blocks together, make as big of a group as you can with green, yellow, blue, or red blocks, then drop a dragon coin of the matching color on top of it. The larger the color group is, when you break it, those pieces will be dropped into the opponent's side, ruining their piles, making it harder for them to do the same thing to you. You aim to get their blocks to the top of the screen so they cannot put any more pieces down, ending the round. Yes, this mode actually does have rounds, which I recommend turning off since it takes quite a long time to finish one match, and doing 2 of them per level can drag out. You get your character's special ability after doing combos and dropping pieces onto your opponent's side. I'm playing a Sub-Zero here, so I freeze their blocks so they cannot see their color or break their blocks at all for a period of time. Yes, it is as broken as it sounds. It is the best ability in the entire game in my opinion. Granted, I did not test them all out, but still, it speaks for itself. After winning a battle, you have a gadget, crusher, or something at the edge of the screen that you push your enemy into, causing a fatality going on to the next stage. While this mode is fun to play, it does become overly repetitive after a few fights and not engaging enough to return to. People who like games such as Tetris will probably enjoy this game a lot more than I do, but holy fuck man, I find this to be the weakest part of the game. I'm glad this mode is here though. Honestly, I'm happy every bit of content is here. From Conquest mode to arcade, to chess combat, to puzzle combat, everything is a lot of fun to play. Just because I say Puzzle Kombat is the weakest does not mean I think it sucks, because it doesn't. The amount of content Mortal Kombat Deception has is unreal. It has so much stuff to do, allowing for a complete experience. I do not think any fighting game since this one has launched with the amount of content that Deception did. Revisiting this game was very exciting for me since I've wanted to replay it for a long time and enjoyed every second of it. The amount of time you can get out of this game is disgusting. The Conquest alone can take you days and days to finish if you want to do everything. Then you have arcade mode if you're going to finish the game with every character, unlocking everything in the crypt as well. That's a lot of time. Then you have chess combat and puzzle combat to change it up if you get bored. The fighting aspect of this game is the best in the 3D era of Mortal Kombat games, keeping the Deadly Alliance fighting system while adding some more to the stage design and giving everyone a few more special moves to play with and increase the fatality from 1 to 2. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance walked so Deception could run. It laid the groundwork and became a stepping stone for debatably the best fighting game of the PS2 era because of the amount of content it has and not to mention how well the core fighting is. With this franchise being put back on the map, no one expected to get this. It was indeed a blessing. Gamers from modern times will never understand since no game releases with this amount of content anymore. Usually with extra modes, one of them feels out of place, but everything fits well with the world of the game. You can see the fun and energy people put into this. In modern times, games are shat out to meet holiday deadlines, but if you give people working on the product time and actual breathing room, this is how games like Mortal Kombat Deception are created. When the developers have a good time making the game, we have a good time playing it. I love this game and I can give it endless praise for how they just knocked it out of the park, but with this game coming to a close, our minds could not comprehend what would come after this masterpiece. Expectations being so high after what we just played, we all looked to the heavens hoping for something to top this, hoping that the next game would solidify Mortal Kombat as a top dog once again.